the conference, we wanted it to be, the faculty to be mostly younger writers. You can see what happened in the meantime. We all got older. But we wanted an older writer to, as it were, say grace, to take one of the writers whose work we really respected and invite them, as it were, to kick off the conference. You know, in the early years we had Richard Wilbur, Donald Justice, Anthony Hecht. Tonight, for the first time, and I think this speaks the maturity of the conference, we have, for the first time as one of our keynotes, a student, Rhina Espaillat. She is a unique and wonderful poet. And I think I could say that we selected her, if only because this was the 16th reading, and she's the perfect Sweet 16 poet for us. She writes out of the complex and interesting life that she's had in the United States and the Dominican Republic, in New York and in Massachusetts, of this childhood she had where her father insisted that she only speak Spanish at home, and had it, as in the words of her great poem, Bilingue, this divided heart, this divided language. I have been following Rhina's poetry since her first book, and she has grown in stature, in range, and in power. When 8 years ago at the National Endowment for the Arts, we started a thing called Poetry Out Loud. Some of you may be familiar with this. It's a national poetry recitation contest for American high school students. This last year, 325,000 high school students participated by memorizing and reciting poems in competition. We put together an anthology, and I insisted that we put in bilingue. It was immediately one of the most popular poems among students. And what I saw again and again were these first-generation Hispanic students who saw that poem, and for the first time, they had found a great poem which articulated this complex, emotional, linguistic, social crisis or challenge of identity. And so it is with great pleasure, and I say this in defiance of all the powwow poets in the audience, that Westchester welcomes our own Rhina Espaillat.
That I really cannot find words to describe it. But of course, every experience at Westchester has been just like that. Whether as a conferee, as a student, the first few years that I came, as a member of the faculty, as a faculty reader when I've had the honor of reading here with others, it has been a life-changing experience, as I was saying to Mike just now. And of course it's life-changing. How could it not be life-changing when you feel that you are in the company of people who have achieved what all of you have achieved and who recognize me as a member of this group? So I am very honored and very happy. This is very ego-stroking. But I do want to say with a caveat that sometimes these opportunities, these experiences that stroke your ego, bite you. They turn around and they bite you because sometimes they can be dangerous. A few years ago, a friend of mine, one of the Powell River poets, said to me, Rhina, have you ever looked yourself up on the internet? I said, no. So he said, well, it's very easy and you really must because you're all over the place. I said, get out. He said, yes. All you do is you click on this, you scroll down to that, you fun. So I did it. And he was right, I'm all over cyberspace. There are whole poems, there are bios, there are quotations from poems, there are all sorts of things that I felt. But what happens is that sometimes you begin to see things that you would have been better off not seeing. And that's exactly what happened to me, because because I got on the blog. I was just going from place to place, you know, relishing all this wonderful. I got on this bio, and someone mentioned having heard me read in New York someplace, and one of the bloggers replied and said, "Oh yes, I heard her read once too. She's a real yenta." Now, I can tell by the reaction that most of you know that wonderful Yiddish word yenta, which has never been considered a compliment. Because what it can suggest is, well, purveyor of unreliable information, busybody, all sorts of things. And my first reaction, of course, was, oh, what a terrible thing to be insulted like that. Stranger, insulted by a stranger, and electronically. So I was very annoyed, and yet, you know, as I thought about it, the longer I thought, the more I changed my mind, because it occurred to me, when you see words on a screen, you don't hear them, so you don't know the tone in which they're being spoken. And sometimes you hear them in your mind in the wrong tone. And I said to myself, well, could it be that he didn't really say in those words, oh, she's a real yenta? Maybe he said, oh, she's a real yenta. And I thought to myself, maybe I have not been insulted. Maybe I have simply been described accurately. Maybe, in fact, I have even been honored. Because, think about it. And I got to thinking about what it is that yentas do. What do yentas do? Well, they observe everything. They are devoted, passionate observers. They don't like anything to get away from them. They look out from behind their windows. They look out through the curtains and they notice who's coming and going, what's happening. And not only how it's happening, but the details. The details involved, and the smaller the detail, the better. So they are passionate observers. They are almost manic collectors of details, and they don't just collect them, they word them. They like to put them into language that will make those details shareable with other people. And I thought, well, this sounds a little bit like a friend of mine, Gerard Manley Hopkins, who wrote about rose moles all in stipple upon trout that swim. And then he wrote about fresh fire-cold chestnut falls and finch's wings. And he went on to describe the world, because he loved the world, as all things counter, original, spare, strange, whatever is fickle, freckled, who knows how, with swift, slow, sweet, sour, and dazzle dim. And I thought, so I know what you are. Right? And I won't say it, but I'm thinking it. And Gerard Manley Hopkins is not terrible company to be in. And then I thought, you know, they do other things. Yentas do other things that now I see in a different light, because you take someone like Dana Gioia, for instance, who well, I can't gild it, I can't change it. What this is eavesdropping. And Dana says, he begins a poem called Long Distance with 2 weeks of silence broken by this call. She holds the neutral phone against her cheek, hearing his whisper cross a continent. Once words were never distant from his lips. Now sound alone would stroke her like a kiss. Now this is listening in on the conversations of others. This is what it is. And then there is the poem in which he ends with, think of the letters that we write our dead. So even the mails are not safe. Poets are so snoopy that they listen in on conversations. They even read the letters addressed to the dead. And Emily Dickinson will do anything to get attention, and she begins a poem practically crooking her finger at the strangers in the audience by saying, I'll tell you how the sun rose, a ribbon at a time. So now, how's that?